Wargamers, this is Mr. Wargaming, and I wanted to take a few minutes to make a video highlighting the gloriousness of this game right here. It's an old one, it's a classic, it's a good one, and in previous videos I've already pointed out that there's a reason that this game launched an entirely new hobby. But after playing a recent version of this game, it really struck home how good Chainmail really is. For those of you keeping score at home, in the last video, I think it's the last video that we published here in the channel, we played a little scenario of the Old Lords of Wonder and Ruin. Now, the Old Lords of Wonder and Ruin is the best version of Chainmail that I've seen to date. It cleans up the language, it presents the same information in a much more modern and streamlined style. If you've ever wanted to experience Chainmail yourself, it's probably the best way to do so. You can get a copy, of course, at Wargames Vault. I believe that it is sold at cost, or maybe you can even get a free version of that game. And if it's still too much for you, you might want to grab a copy of Hell March, which is the same fundamental game, step down even a step further so that you can plug it in as a module to your Dungeons & Dragons, or as it says on the cover here, what's the latest? Shadow Dark RPG, Old School Essentials. Heck, even give it a shot with something crazy like Macahuitl by the Basic Expert. Hey, they had mass battles in the pre-contact Central Americas. Anyway, the game itself really isn't as complicated as it's been made out to be for the last few decades. You've only got 6 troop classifications: light, heavy, medium, foot, and horse. Now, there are a whole lot of little decorative touches you can put on those 6 classifications that really give you a shockingly robust and flexible game system. But at its core, the game is really just a dice pool mechanic. For every guy, every figure that you have in the front line of your unit, you're going to roll a d6, and you're probably going to hit on 6s if it's a fair fight. Now, it rarely is. That's if like fights like. If you're fighting a classification that you're not as good at fighting, then you're going to cut that number in half. If you're better at they are, then when you attack, you're going to be hitting on 5s, or maybe hitting on 4s. But it's a dice pool mechanic. That's all there is to it. It's explained way better in these 2 titles than it is in the OG original Chainmail, but that's not to belittle the concept, and it's not to throw any shade on Gary Gygax. After all, he was there at the dawn of time. I would hope that we would have advanced beyond what he's done, and we have. However, at its core, Chainmail is a fascinating game system. It's one of the few games that I find I keep returning to the scenarios time and time again. In the days after playing a battle, I find myself thinking, what if I had done this? What if I had done that? What if, instead of light horse, we had medium horse there? How could we tweak this battle? What if I had done things differently? What if the dice had gone a little different? It's a game that just sticks with you. And I think that's a rare thing in today's oversaturated market. A lot of games, when you sit down to play them, they're rehashes of retellings of older mechanics. And maybe they're using the same ingredients in some new and surprising ways, but because we've done these things so much these days, and so many titles are borrowing and putting new spins on things. And I don't want to belittle the current state of our hobby. After all, there's only, 12 ingredients at Taco Bell, and I eat there all the time because you can combine them in some really interesting and different ways. However, the point is not that rehashing and recycling the same mechanics is a bad thing. It is that the final product, in too many cases, leaves you playing a game, putting it back into its box, and then it's over. It's a small, comfortable meal that isn't memorable. It doesn't stick to your ribs the way that this game does. And I think it's really a testament to the creative genius of Gary Gygax that he was able to build a game like this, which itself borrowed on concepts that had been published previously, to create a whole, to create something new. Compare this to the modern Splatbook series of Universal Systems like Rampant or Song of, or if you squint your eyes just right, the Joe McCullough series that started, at least as far as I can tell, with Frostgrave and has been used not just for fantasy, but for fantasy Napoleonics. It works really well if you ditch the fantasy with just Napoleonic skirmishes. But you have to buy the right supplement for that. With Chainmail, everything you need is right here under the same cover. You can run normal spearmen. You could run a phalanx. You could run lightly armored spearmen, like not the Landscadex, like the Swiss. On the other hand, with just a little wrinkle, you can run heavily armored phalanxes, like the Greek phalanx. Really powerful, really robust, and it just leaves you wondering what else you can do with the title. How many games do that? One of the things that I'd be very curious to see is, in my case, as you've seen here on my table, I typically go with a Bowling Green flat battlefield with just a scattering of interesting terrain features to direct the flow of the battle and to give people something to anchor flanks and give them some challenges to cope with. But what if the table was covered primarily by wooded areas? How are those Mongols going to fare against a lightly armed foot troops if the foot troops are in forest and the Mongols aren't? That's an interesting experiment. The game of Chainmail begs you to run these sorts of things. Not only that, but it integrates seamlessly with any kind of map-based campaign that you care to run. It could be a game of Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, as we've done here on the channel. It could be just a standard map-based campaign, something similar to Scharnhorst. It could be a game that you generate out of your 5th edition campaign. If you've got 100 to 1,000 troops on each side of the battlefield, a mix of horse, foot, and even some guns, a cannon or two, a handful of figures with crossbows or bows, that could be as many as 50 to 100 bowmen. Throw them down on the table. Throw some terrain down. Throw them at each other and roll some dice, see what happens. The answers might just surprise you. The results might just surprise you. It's a kinetic, chaotic experience, but it's one that leaves you thinking about the puzzles that you've faced. There's a stream there. How do we deal with that? There's a light wood over there. How do we deal with that? He's got heavy troops. How can I get them to stand still long enough for my heavy troops to hit them in the flank? These are the things that keep you up at night or help you to sleep at night as you drift off, dreaming of tiny soldiers marching back and forth across the table. It really is just an amazing game, and I think that for all of its reputation as hard to parse, and that we've moved on to better games, and we've developed the mechanics, I still don't know that this game has ever been beaten. I still don't know of another game like this that was able to create and spawn an entirely new hobby. The only thing that comes close is perhaps Warhammy, the original Warhammer. I told you this was just going to be thrown together. I'm going to leave that in. I'm not even editing that out. Warhammer created the 800-pound gorilla of our hobby, and it remains the most, well, again, I'm not doing any research here. It's one of the most lucrative IPs in gaming right now. But even Warhammer started out as a reskin or a tribute or a homebrew version of this game right here. Everything we do, we owe to this game. Just about everything. I know you British guys, you guys have some opinions on which came first, and and we say it all the time, Tony Bath gets some credit because this built on Tony Bath. And there's some talk about a 1 page of handwritten notes that somebody ran at a convention in New England a while before. And so clearly this is the one case where we have to understand that what Gary Gygax compiled here, drawing on inspiration from a host of sources, was really owed directly to that one guy. I don't buy it. I just don't buy it. Whoever wrote that scribble scrabble of rules, Gary might have drawn on that, but he drew on a lot of things. He created a whole new recipe, and that was just one of many ingredients. And if that game was so amazing, then why didn't that game catch the world's imagination? Why didn't it set the hobby world on fire? This one did. It's a great game, and if it's just too hard for you to parse the writing of Gary himself, pick up one of these titles. You won't regret it. It's going to help you understand how to run mass battles. Either one of these is so easy. You just can't go wrong. Again, I know I'm basically doing a sales job for a 50-year-old game here, but it's a game that's got a lot of misapprehensions about it, and a lot of things people say around the digital water cooler about Chainmail that everyone just knows is true. It just ain't so. Don't believe the hype. believe your own experience, get some figures on the table, play these games. You won't regret it. That's all I got for you today. Till next time, I'm Mr. Wargaming, and I really am praying for you.